Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to another edition of Hot Program. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode. And now a man who, what, when, where, why, and how. A man who needs no introduction. How you doing today, my one black friend?
I'm doing okay, Pocket Locker. How about you?
I am hanging in there.
Good.
We got PC in the chat. Jake is here. Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. Let's get it going. So the first thing I wanted to show people is, yes, definitely hit all the buttons. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe. Turn on the bell for notifications. So this is a little bit of a clip from, I guess, some independent voters responding to the Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate. And it's just a little clip. It's like 47 seconds, but it will come back up a bit later in the stream when we get into the main event. Make sure I turn this up. Doesn't look like it's turned up.
The two of you women reacted very strongly when Harris was talking about abortion, when both candidates were talking about abortion rights. You reacted strongly to Donald Trump and his positions. You seemed emotional about it, Hannah.
Yes.
What was your thought on that? What was it about that part of the debate that struck you?
His misinformation. He sensationalized just so much facts or not things
Victoria.
That are not facts that have been disproven.
When he was talking
he
about
does it because that is what his supporters want to hear, and it really impacts who people like us, if we choose to vote for him or not, because we know you are lying, but you're still saying it, and it's disgusting.
Okay, so those words were incredibly powerful to me. We know you're lying.
That's right.
She said in no uncertain terms, we know you're lying.
Mm-hmm.
And you say it anyway, because it's what your people want to hear. And this is going to, like I said, this is going to come back up in the stream because I talk about being in what I call the jig is up era of Christianity. Does anybody remember that expression? The jig is up.
Yeah.
So I just looked up the meaning. The meaning of the jig is up. It's used to say that a dishonest plan or activity has been discovered and will not be allowed to continue. The example given is the jig is up. Where did you hide the stolen goods?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean when I say we're in the jig is up era when it comes to faith. We know you're lying. and I think it's really unique. And I do, in a sense, I relate it to evolution versus creationism. And the example I give is like, so many people, they're still creationists. We were created, anytime they talk to you about faith, anytime they talk to you about God, they're going to be talking to you about being created in creationism. Literally, I think the definition of God is that he's the creator. But for those of us that understand science, that understand evolution, not just as a theory, but also as a fact, like, we know they're wrong. And we're in this time where they may claim to be sincere in their beliefs. They may be doubling and tripling down. They may be making documentaries, maybe doing all of these things. But for those who really understand the alternative, who really understand what's going on, there's like nothing even to talk about, right?
Right.
And I think we're largely in the same era with faith overall. It's just that unfortunately, institutions and people of faith are not on board yet. But I guess my point is that should not cause the rest of us to doubt. Like we are standing on solid ground, as they would say. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the main event, y'all. So this one is a new apologist that I found. Maybe some of y'all heard of her. Her name is Faith. Her channel is called How to Faith a Life. And I'm gonna just tell you off the top, I'm getting Rebecca Davis vibes. She seems very friendly, like your friendly neighborhood Christian Bible study lady. But I definitely have some critiques of what she's talking about. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and check it out. I'm sure we'll both have plenty to say. Yeah.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
When politicians are making us promises in Pocket Locker, you've been on the inside. We now have Donald Trump saying, "Oh, and he wants to eliminate the tax on overtime." He'll have a heck of a lot easier time getting that through, which isn't going to go through, than he will saying there's going to be no tax on tips, because tips make wages, essentially that becomes discriminatory. I don't earn tips at my job. So you can't give them something you're not giving me. You just can't do it. You have to have the same opportunity. And a lot of people don't fully claim their tips. And a lot of people pay cash to servers so that it's not written down how much they really got for a tip. So I'm one of the people that does that in terms of if the bill's $75 at a restaurant, I'll strike out the area that says tip on the receipt so they don't charge a tip, but I'll put the tip on the table or put it in their hands. So that way, when they're tallying everything up at the end of the night, there's no record of what I left. I leave it up to that person to be honest about what they do. And then I don't have the extra expense on my credit card, that sort of thing.
All right, let's jump into it. And it's the show's gonna be till about about an hour and a half today. The video is about 17 minutes. So we should be able to jump in and out pretty freely.
Okay.
For years, which is really just the outworking of how we study the Bible. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Faith. If you're new here, I typically do more Bible study content and how to study the Bible and share what I learned in my undergrad degree and seminary degree to just help average everyday people like you and I go deeper in our Bible studies, because it's not just pastors and scholars who should be able to do that. But I've seen a pattern.
So first thing I want to just point out, because it's gonna be a lot. She keeps her videos moving. Undergrad degree. Don't know where she went. But then she mentioned seminary, right? Went to seminary. So I have thoughts. Like,
okay.
Like I said, I don't know where she went. And she very well could have went to like a regular ass university. But a lot of times people like this, they went to a Bible college, they went to a Christian university, whatever. And then they go to seminary, right? This is very much Rebecca Davis. And I just need people to rock with me when I say that a lot of times this is not a legitimate path to education. Because if we're gonna be deconstructing a lot of this stuff, it's important to think about what a person goes through to get to where they're at. Right. And like me, y'all know, I'm a professor. I had to go through, my undergrad. I had to go through grad school. All right. I had to be a postdoc. I had to go through crazy interviews. Right. And that's all what it takes to ideally get hired at a university in a science department. Like, you can't just show up like, oh, hey, I like science. Give me a gig. And what bothers me so much about what Faith is doing to people is they've invested the wrong way. Like, You're an economics guy, like opportunity cost, right? Like it means something when you spend years and years and years in this stuff. And when you're doing that, what you're not doing is being at a more secular institution, learning about the liberal arts, learning about history, learning about the sciences, interacting with different types of people, and really coming to what we would call a more sophisticated, educated type of perspective. Matter of fact, I was thinking the other day about how Christians demonize the term worldly, but for most of us, that's a good thing, right? Like we think of it as being good to like be a citizen of the world, know different people from different cultures and all this type of stuff. So it just matters what people do, and yeah, it's unfortunate. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of books in the background.
A lot of books in the
So
background.
this is a very serious person.
A lot of books in the background.
What I don't see is her blue success light that makes the algorithm. I'm almost convinced this could be true, that the algorithm looks for that blue in the background and it refers
But you know
that
what?
video to more people.
That's why she's got the blue.
The streak of blue behind her.
Blue, yeah, the streak of blue books. She knew.
Smart
She
lady.
was very strategic. Exactly, PC. Exactly, PC. They stay in the bubble, and you really don't get a good education in that bubble.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to something that was recently said by me here on the Hot Program. My mother, my best friend's mom, is like a mom to me, so I call her mom. She's been a Christian longer than I've been alive. I'm 52 years old. She's never read the Bible all the way through. She goes to church nearly every Sunday and probably has been to church nearly every Sunday the entire time I've been alive, and never read the Bible all the way through.
I mean,
so go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
Well, again, I will ask, because she's far from being the only person, right? I saw a Pew study that showed that less than 25% of proclaimed Christians have read the Bible all the way through or read it on a regular basis. So what is literally, if there is a God, if the Bible's God is the real God, what does that say about his ability to reach people? What does that say about his ability to have his followers truly get invested into his word, right? Where is the personal relationship? It couldn't be more superficial, right? It's like, I use that comment sometimes, like, well, you don't play on the team, you just bought the jersey.
Right.
You're just wearing you're a fan in the stands wearing the jersey. You don't know any stats, do you? No. You just have a favorite player, right? Like Jesus and maybe Paul and Job are your favorites. If your name is David, you seem to resonate with King David, even though you never fought in an army, collected 200 foreskins to get a woman. You never killed anybody, but hey, you never were naked kissing Jonathan in a field, as the Bible says. But hey, that's your dude. That's your guy. Just like you. Sinners alike.
I think that's really insightful. And I say the same thing. Like, God wrote you a book and you have no interest in reading it. Like, don't. And again, it sort of undermines the whole thing. Don't tell me how in love you are with God, how in love you are with Jesus, when literally he wrote you an entire book and you won't read it.
And you won't read it. Come on, at least read like Malachi or something short.
And of course, I say the same thing about heaven. Like Christians are always like, oh, I can't wait to be in heaven and worship Jesus forever. And I'm like, you don't want to be in church on Sunday for more than 90 minutes. You don't want to worship Jesus all afternoon. Don't tell me you want to worship forever. And honestly, I'm thinking about even the idea of a Bible study, or her channel even, right? Like, you don't do this for good books. I'm not saying good books don't have book clubs or whatever. But for the most part, this idea that you need to be shamed into reading this thing, you need to be encouraged, you need to like have a group that's going to hold you accountable for reading it, and all this, it's because you don't want to read it. It's because you don't want to read it. If you really love the book, I'm not saying you wouldn't find yourself in a book club of a book you were voracious about reading, but I really think for so many Christians and people like that, they join a Bible study because they literally think, if I don't have people pushing me and making me study and making me get into the Word of God, I'm not going to do it on my own. And it's like a subtle confession, like your book is boring, you don't like it, you don't want to read it. And even a lot
Or
of
they,
go ahead.
or, sorry to interrupt, Pakalaka, or they know it's not true. They know it's not real. Right. I've been having conversations, probably many of us have been, with my peers and friends about politics. And I'm getting people say to me, well, Trump this and Trump that, and Biden and Harris this and Biden and Harris that. When they make a comment that might be a really good point about some deficiencies they see in Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, if I present to them the same deficiency in Trump, they hand wave it away. Right? If I tell someone I don't want to vote for Trump because I think he's a poor representative of the nation, and I can go on and on and on, well, then you're a racist. I'm not a racist because I don't want to vote for someone. I voted for Joe Biden, and he's whiter than me. Harris is also whiter than me. you know. So the idea that the defenses become so radical when they don't want to accept, bringing this back to people with a religion, that they don't want to accept the flaws in their point of view, to the point to where their reflex is to be dishonest.
Yes.
It's shocking.
Yes, and
it's shocking.
And you hit on a key word there for me, reflex. I often say these people have weird instincts, like the things they go to stay consistent, to keep themselves in line. So Ember pointed out, but the study is guided so you avoid the difficult parts. Yeah, this is why
well said,
what my
Ember.
one black friend said was important. He said the whole Bible, reading the whole thing through. Literally, when I want to have a conversation with a Christian and it comes up to Bible reading, to me, Bible study barely counts because of what Ember is talking about, and devotional reading certainly doesn't count. And I see them kind of usually in the same vein, but sometimes Bible studies will get a little bit more into challenging areas. But yeah, I think a lot of people, to Ember's point, only engage with the Bible safely. And they know it's safe when it's in Bible study. They know it's safe if they're following a devotional guide. They know it's safe to bring the Bible to church on Sunday morning because pastor's gonna, make it all right. And it's not that in a room alone, just you and your mind reading the book for what it says. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. So Ember, I really like this point, and thank you for making it. When I was probably 7 years old, I was in church and I asked about dinosaurs as they might relate to the Bible. In the same conversation, I asked about aliens as they might relate to the Bible. Specifically, the question is, did Jesus just come to Earth? Or did Jesus go and preach to the aliens around the universe? This is a basic question. And I so desperately, when I taught Sunday school, wanted the kids to ask me this. I didn't have an answer that was detailed, right? I didn't know, but I wanted them to ask me this because I got shot down and chastised for asking such ridiculous, unproductive questions in Sunday school. by two people, right? My mom's then best friend
Mm.
and the Sunday school teacher. So what we see in that structure is that the authorities, my mom's friend and the Sunday school teacher, are working to maintain the power structure, whether they know it or not. It, again, reflex. It is autonomic. It is just going to happen. Sort of the beauty of the preaching of the Bible is that it instills a predetermined answer to questions that come up. And I am astonished. We all might be how, again, I'll use that term again, reflexive it is. You could almost tell them what they're going to say before they say it when you challenge them in a particular thing. I go to Mark 16-19 all the time and say, hey, you can't drink deadly poison and not be harmed by it, right? If I give you hydrochloric acid, undiluted, and I say, here's a pint of this, drink it, so I can watch that person's throat and face dissolve right in front of me, it's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it.
Right, they're not going to do it. They're not
Can
going to
they
do
get
it.
Can they get bit by a poisonous snake and live? You know, whatever, like a Mojave green rattlesnake or something like that. I hope that never happens to them. But are they going to make it without treatment?
No,
Immediate treatment?
no.
They're not.
No.
Would they even try? No. Well, look, the Bible says you're going to have this ability. But my favorite go-to, I don't want to put anybody in danger. I don't want to see that. I don't want anybody hurt or harmed. But what would be fabulous that is promised in those same verses is that they will be able to lay hands on people
And heal them.
right? That should be one of the greatest ways to spread Christianity as authentic, wholesome, and true. Is so when the Jehovah's Witnesses that I saw last week walking around the neighborhood, if they went door to door and said, "Hi, do you need healing today?" We are Jehovah's Witnesses. We are spreading the word of Almighty Jehovah, and we'd like to see, we'd like to give healthcare to the people in your home. There's no donation required, but you can give one if you like. And then they, regrow a leg. I have a new neighbor. They have two special needs children. One is wheelchair bound. Why not? Why not help them out?
Yeah, bring on the
Why not
healing.
him?
Because they
Exactly.
know. I think it's a really good point to show that they just don't believe it. They
Right.
just,
But
that's what you're
reply-
saying about the book, right? That that a lot of the reason they don't jump into it is because they just know that stuff's not true.
It's not true. So Pocket Locker, or maybe we can do this with the chat. Would you and any of our viewers in the chat like to respond to what they think the comeback to, hey, do you have the power to lay hands on people and heal them if you are a follower of Christ, like Mark 16-19 says you will be able to do? Can you do that?
Oh, it's free will. It's usually because then you'd have a miracle and you tested God and you shouldn't test
But they
God. But
They had, okay.
and then you
those
wouldn't
are
have
some.
free will because I just think that's how they respond. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other responses, Pocket Locker? I'm recording on my phone, so I don't get to see the chat. I tried to bring it
Sacrifice
up.
is a good thing. That's a good one. They do. A lot of them do just go with their sacredness and suffering, and the meek shall inherit. This is the Mother Teresa, right? Mother Teresa would tell you sacrifice is a good thing.
Yeah,
and
suffering
it's
is a good
soul
thing
building,
with her
soul
too.
building, basically. Yeah, soul
So,
building.
so typically, the best comeback that I get is, well, the age of miracles is over. Or the Bible doesn't say followers in the future or believers in the future. It's like, no, it literally says anyone.
Oh yeah,
Those who follow him.
person doesn't have faith. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that one. I told the story of me in
Yeah.
front of Panda Express where the lady tried to faith heal my arthritis. Yeah, good job. She failed, but it's my fault for not having enough faith as opposed to her fault for not having really
Miracle
awesome.
powers.
Magic, yeah, miracle powers. It would just be so wonderful, right? But look, if God can create the entirety of the universe other than the planet Earth in a single day, he can't start healing some of these people, right? St. Jude's Hospital, an organization which I admire, right? They treat all these sick kids and take care of their families while the children are staying there. What a beautiful concept. However, it should be unnecessary according to the promises of the Bible, but it's not. We need more places like that, not fewer.
All right, let's get.
Oh, it's me, not you. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Crystal.
It's me. It's not me. It's you. Exactly.
It's not me. It's you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers, gang. Let's let her roll here.
Which is really just the outworking of how we study the Bible. And it's a problem where most Christians fall for this lie. And it is a very big lie. It is kind of multifaceted, very nuanced, and it doesn't just come down to like political party or political divides. Maybe even just clicking on this video, you are like, ooh, I wonder what political party Faith comes from or how she views politics. And I have never wanted to touch on this topic. It's not something that I enjoy. It's not something that fuels me up and fires me up or anything, but I do think this is necessary to our hermeneutic, to how we read.
All right, y'all. Let's get into it. So the question of the day is, in fact, which is funny because I didn't know she was going to do this, but the question of the day is, in fact, like, who do you think she supports in the 2024 election? And I have to tell you, like, I feel so weird when people go to do this because I do think there's a lot of like traditional, like, you don't discuss religion and politics and type of thinking that people have. But I also think we're living in really precarious times. And this idea that, like, I'm just going to stay neutral, I'm going to stay out of this, but at the same time, I'm going to be all up in this. Like, she is chastising people for engaging in sort of, you know, what I call the electoral Christianity. And so I'm just like wondering where she's at, right? Because at least for me, if her, because this is like very much sidelines. It's very much like I'm the enlightened centrist. I'm staying out of this. I'm not going to talk about my affiliations. I'm not going to talk about where my politics are. To me, this isn't. A lot of times people like this can't see the obvious choices, and unfortunately, they either stay out of this stuff or a lot of times they vote Republican. A lot of these people, they vote Republican. They don't think Trump is good, but they can't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat and stuff like this. And I don't know, like, it matters right now. It like matters right now. So I'm just like,
it does.
I'm just like, what? You can't make heads or tails of Trump versus Harris. And so that's like off-putting for me. But I get that she's trying to make the case for neutrality.
Well, I'm almost wondering if she won't get into it because she doesn't think women should vote. There are women who don't think women should vote.
There is a lot of those, and a lot of them are conservative Christians. And this is another thing. This is why, like, I hate to say this, but like, Christians have to gain a little bit more self-awareness of all the problematic stuff going on in and around the church, and understand when you need to be bringing clarity to these things. Because you're right, if she doesn't say more than this, we don't even know if she thinks women should vote. We don't even. So you got to give us something, Faith. You can't just be neutral on everything.
By the way, I would like to applaud her because I think, other than her talking too fast, I think her videos well
they're fantastic. Done. They're fantastic. Oh yeah.
Are they? Okay, you see more?
No. I'm just agreeing with you. The production value is definitely there. Definitely.
Yeah, she's definitely
charismatic. She's good. Yeah, she's like Rebecca Davis with better production value. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's got great production value. So
and she seems like a nice person. You know, like she'd be great to get pizza with or something. You can't ignore politics because politics won't ignore you. Ember,
that's true.
Spoken like a true pro.
You're already, the way politics works is you're already included whether you include yourself or not.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And we study the Bible. And so this is what this video is. So the big lie that I see most Christians fall into every election year is what I'm going to refer to as the politicized gospel. Now, somebody might have already penned that term, probably so, and they might have their own definition for it. I don't know how others might define that term. But for me, when I say politicized gospel, I mean it as a threefold kind of nuanced beast. First off, a politicized gospel is one that is American centric. Sometimes it spans to the Western world, but for the most part is very Americanized. Whenever they read the book of Revelation, it's all in terms of America and American politics. Whenever they picture heaven, it is all in terms of America and American politics. Whenever they think about the Antichrist, it's all about America and American leaders. It is very American oriented. And this could happen in other countries. I personally am an American raised in America. I don't know enough about the Christian dynamics in other countries around the world and whether they do this in Germany, in Germanized gospel or whatever. But as an American speaking, I know firsthand that this is very, very common.
Wait, hang on a second. This is very interesting. Global audience weigh in. Is this also something that happens in pop Christian culture in other countries? I just think it's good YouTube. That's a good question for comments later. Yeah. But it's very interesting to call it pop Christian culture. That almost seems like an acknowledgement, right? That there's this sort of pop culture Christianity. And I think it's not too much to even read into this to say that it's sort of one of those things where she thinks pop Christian culture isn't really Christianity.
Exactly. It's Christian light. Just add a flavor packet into water,
yes.
Shake and enjoy. I got that going on right now, but it's lemonade.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we see it, right? We see it. When I see Stephen Furtick, I can't help myself. I'm like, that's a show. It's all a show. It's all a show. There's a number of those guys on his level where I'm going, I don't really see any faith here. This is a money. This is a concert. This whole experience is designed around making money and not getting one crowd member to realize it's happening. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll defend everything I do, saying, look, I didn't get the money from the church. I got that money from my book. You know, that's how I was able to do all these things. Well, Jesus isn't known for having a mansion down here on the earth. And Mary Magdalene is one of the people who used her wealth to fund the ministry. She gave that money away. You know, some of it anyway.
Yeah.
Jesus, we don't hear about him in his bulging pockets. Where's the sermon where Jesus took up a collection? Right? Where's that at in the Bible?
Never.
Where's the sermon where Jesus, a poor person came to Jesus and he started pulling quarters like a good grandfather. He started pulling quarters or something like that from behind their ears and filling their purse and saying to them on the way, go and sin no more, share what you have with the less fortunate than you and buy some new shoes.
Yeah. So,
you know,
so my thing with this is, and again, I think some of this just comes down to perspective and education. I see a lot of these sort of Christian dialogues. I would describe them, I don't know if this is right, but I describe them as like internal critiques. It's like Christian on Christian trying to set Christianity straight. And I think where we come from is much more of an external critique. But from where I sit, a lot of the times it's just a lack of awareness, because to me, first off, you can't escape politics. What Ember said, right? You can't avoid politics, as politics is not going to avoid you. But more than that, I think everything at some level is political. Like when you start talking about how are we to live together, we got to make some decisions about how we live together, how we run our schools, who's going to maintain our roads, what are we going to do? And that, as much as people don't want to think of that as being political, it's inherently political. There has to be contracts, there has to be services. And so to me, like, she's not realizing Christianity to me is inherently political. I've never gone to a church, and I've been through lots of denominations. I've never been to a church and seen a pastor not try to speak to the issues that are going on in their community. Well, as soon as you start speaking to the issues that are going on in your community, it's politics. It's politics. And so I don't think sometimes they're being quite forthright about how much the church is insisting that everything in your life be spirit-led, be driven by your faith, be driven by your relationship with Jesus. And so when you want a person's entire existence to be Christ-centered, it sounds kind of ridiculous to not expect that their political decisions are going to be in the same vein. Hey, Gorn, sir. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, let's go ahead.
Gospel or whatever, but as an American speaking, I know firsthand that this is very, very common. The second part to this politicized gospel is that it's very fear-driven and really powered by hate. It is something that maybe you watch a commentary video about online, or you watch the news and it's very like, you get angsty, you get anxiety when you dwell on it, and it also fuels you not to
cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. This is a perfect example of how I say people use spirituality in lieu of mental health. It's sort of another thing about the jig is up era that people aren't even discussing, to be quite honest with you, which is we know about mental health now. We have real mental health professionals, resources, medications, treatments, all of this. But we still have people that are religious. And gang, I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but if you think about it, using religion instead of mental health is almost like the minimum requirement for everyone. You rarely hear a person's faith journey that isn't, I had this bad stuff going on in my life. I was living in darkness. I had anxiety. I was depressed. I was on drugs. I was addicted to porn. It's always going to be some really terrible thing about their mental health. And then it's going to be Jesus made it all better. And again, if we're going to live in a society that takes health seriously, we can't do that anymore. We can't do that anymore. It's not okay to say cast all your anxieties on him. Yeah. Where? This is not treatment. This is not therapy. This is not how you get rid of anxieties. And we got to stop letting religious people act like this shit is cute. We got to call it out. No, you are effectively denying the realities of mental health.
Crystal put Acts 17:26 in the chat. I would like to go there, and I'm going to start in 24 because it's kind of, I think it ups the ante a little bit, Crystal. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. This is totally ignoring the fact that for a time while Israel was in the desert, he lived in a tent. I would have loved to have seen this, quite honestly. Our cameras were there. It'd be a fantastic moment to see that. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. Well, that isn't true, is it? Because we know that so many people, Christians and the rest of us really, we know that in a society, where it functions optimally is when we cooperate with each other, and when we help, when we help each other, when we are aware that help is needed, or we even assume it is. And then we ask, hey, do you need help with this? I've been having back trouble the whole year. And my neighbor, she came over and she helped me out with some stuff that I just was having trouble getting to. Like, oh, fantastic. So we could go on here to 26, where Crystal posted, from one man, he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. 27, God did this so they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. So I find it very interesting that this is more of the brilliance of the Bible, to be able to lay claim to what's going on as the machinations of God. Right? So if you got another person like my best friend's mom who's telling me that everything isn't predetermined, but God is omniscient, show her this. Show her that. It's telling you.
Respect.
God appointed the times in history and the boundaries of their land. Right? Are you gonna? Is she gonna then show this to somebody like me who's all for Palestine having its own state? Right? And being independent?
No.
Well, God appointed the times and boundaries. You said that. You brought up that scripture. Again, it can just, I literally could use my Bible as a doorstop if I wanted to. That's not what it was designed for, but it is an excellent doorstop. And right now it's over there on my dresser, stopping it from flying away. Due to gravity, it's just holding it in place beautifully.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the clip. We got a lot to get through.
Your neighbor, not to love your neighbor, but to hate your neighbor that disagrees with you. It is something that basically condemns anybody that thinks differently from them. That is another aspect of what I refer to as a politicized gospel. And the third and final aspect of this politicized gospel is that it is not eternally minded. It is primarily, for the most part, when I see it, it is focused on right now, not heaven bound. Now, if you guys have taken my course, Bible Study Bootcamp, where I share everything I learned in Bible college and seminary about how to read the Bible, it's basically like crash Bible college degree on hermeneutics. I talk about creation, fall, redemption, consummation, which is pretty like reformed in theology, but it's just a worldview, like a lens to kind of help you view the world. Like we were created this way and we're moving towards heaven. So how do we live right now in light of the fall and sin all around us, in light of the cross, redemption? How do we live looking forward to the final consummation, or Revelation 21 and 22? And the beauty of this lens not only affects the way that we view the story of the Bible and apply it to our life, but it also informs the way that we view today. I think some of the biggest cults and biggest lies even in Christian culture come down to people have a misunderstanding of what heaven looks like. It is people from every tribe, tongue, and nation, down to today. I think some of the biggest cults and biggest lies.
She said biggest cults, right?
She did.
Yeah.
Lies even in Christian culture come down to people have a misunderstanding of what heaven looks like. It is people from every tribe, tongue, and nation. It's not just Americans here.
Not every.
Heaven. It is people of
Not
all
every.
different shapes, colors. It is not just the men of the household in heaven. It is not tiered like different levels of better Christians or something like that. There's all different nuanced ways that people view weird stuff.
Okay. You're supposed to lay your treasures up in heaven. Right? I would guarantee you there are tiers in heaven, not the Eric Clapton kind.
Right.
Stuff about
Right.
But exactly. So when the disciples are being told that they're gonna have these rewards, and you read in Revelation, there's 12 gates, right? And there's again, it's set up that there's this hierarchy. We're already learning about it in the biblical text.
Right.
And just in case you're Christian and you keep saying there's streets of gold, like you got to read Revelation, where the gold is essentially a color, because the streets are like fine glass. Gold is a fine glass.
the Christian faith, we're moving towards heaven. So that's not of the Lord if that doesn't point to heaven. Now, this politicized gospel is so scary and so hard because for the most part, I find that Christians kind of come alive in their faith every 4 years with the political activation in their mind. They all of a sudden care about things that do technically come down to their faith, but they didn't care about it these last 3 years or the 3 years before.
Just very interesting, y'all. Just point. I'm gonna keep moving, but look, just highlight some of her language. Every 4 years, they start to care about things, and then she says something very key that do come down to their faith. Trust me, that's gonna come back.
Election. When we talked about the sanctity of life, if we aren't also caring for the
and then this quote, our conviction shouldn't be important only during election years. Now, this is very ambiguous. Are you saying the issue is Christians are motivated electorally by things they shouldn't be motivated by? Are Christians doing bad things in the ballot box? See, it doesn't really quite sound like she's saying that. It almost sounds like she's really saying, nah, if you're going to be a homophobe all 4 years. Nah, if you're going to be up in arms about abortion, be up in arms all 4 years. If you're going to be up in arms about, Christian nationalism or teaching creationism in the schools, be up in arms about that shit all 4 years. So is this really a progressive Christian message that's saying, hey, Christians, let's not be so political? Or is this really a complaint that these things only really seem to come to the forefront during presidential election years? Oh, and by the way, I just don't agree with her. I think she's the type of person who is making this because she only pays attention to political issues during presidential years. If most of us think about it, and you've been even interacting in these spaces and dealing with apologetics or dealing with politics, you know that actually we're constantly butting heads against Christians, and these things don't come up every 4 years. They may take a step to the forefront during presidential election years, but most of the Christians I know that are up in arms about abortion, they are up in arms about it all the time. Most of the Christian bigots I know, they're bigots 24/7, 365, all 4 years out of the damn electoral season. So I think she's one of those people who sees the sort of escalation during presidential years. She participates in that herself. And then she's like, oh my goodness, we only care once in a while. And it's like, I don't know.
Well, she used the term sanctity of life. Okay, so is not an LGBTQ person having equal rights, not being discriminated against, not being denied to get a cake made for them or getting married and things like that? That's a sanctity of life issue as well, is it not? It's not just abortion, right? A person who's lived their 94 years on this earth and is suffering from stage 4 cancer and in their wherever, right? And maybe breathing for them is like razor blades are sawing away at their lungs with every breath. They managed to save up some money, but that money is being burned through quickly in hospice care, and that person would like to die. But the drugs can keep them going another 4 years. Is not respecting their right to die, denying their sanctity.
But see, now you're getting to the substance of the issues, and that's a big problem. Is Christians are inhumane, and their policies are still very, very inhumane. She's talking about care about the sanctity of life, but she's clearly probably comes down on the anti-abortion side, which is cruel and about taking women's rights away. She probably talks about the sanctity of the family and and we know that that's coded for anti-LGBTQ. What are we doing? You know that they don't support feeding the poor. They don't even support universal health care. They don't support housing as a human right. I mean, it's like all of that stuff is in the Bible. It doesn't mean anything to them.
It doesn't mean anything. Look, even God, show me the scripture where God is anti-abortion. Show it to me. Because in Numbers 5, he decrees how to make an abortion potion. for unfaithful women. There's all these genocides where they march through and they're supposed to kill the babies, cut them out of the wombs and things like that. Show me where. He had the flood where he killed every baby. He killed, unless the wives of Noah's son, excuse me, unless Noah's son's wives are pregnant, he killed every pregnant woman too.
Yep.
And we never see, and God repented that he killed all those babies. No. Where do we see God repenting in the Bible? That he made man.
Yep. It's terrible. Anti-human.
Election. When we talked about the sanctity of life, if we aren't also caring for the widow, the orphan, and the poor, do we truly care about life? When it comes to respecting others and how they deserve to live, do we give that to those whom we hate? You know, there's just all different aspects.
Do we give that to those whom we hate?
The gospel is really
you just don't take it away.
Certain topics and very us-centric.
But it was just very interesting that she didn't challenge the hate. She didn't catch the fact that you shouldn't hate anybody. What do you mean? Do we give stuff to the people that we hate? So you're admitting you hate them? Like, okay.
Well, creation, fall, redemption, consummation.
Jesus famously spoke about if someone's trying to take something from you, you give them more than they ask for.
Yeah, and they don't, and they're clearly not about that.
Just like a basic
love your enemies. Love your enemy. Pray for those who despitefully use you. Right? There's a little more that I'm forgetting.
Sure.
But pray for the people who are making your life worse. That's how you're supposed to treat them. Not hit them back. Not hit them back or get them back.
Yeah.
Not what he's saying. Because essentially, sorry.
No, nigga.
I'm preaching now, Pocket Locker.
I know, but I'm trying to get us through the video. We got to get through. We got a lot to get through.
All right. Short show today. But I whatever. That's enough said by me on that portion. I think everybody listening understands where I'm coming from. Please continue.
All right. Thanks.
This way, then the fall, then Jesus died on the cross, and now we're looking forward to heaven. This framework should help us understand that we live in a very pagan world, that our citizenship is not found here, but is in heaven. So this politicized gospel really comes down to living for right now instead of an eternal mindset. Now that I've defined politicized gospel, there's so many different ways that I want to talk about this and the outworking and how not to think like this, but I think the biggest thing is needing to identify it. I see it looking like just practically people all of a sudden remember that they're a Christian and they care about the sanctity of life, every 4 years. All of a sudden they care about justice every 4 years. All of a sudden they care about, whatever it is that their party really likes to drill down. All of a sudden they care about those things every 4 years and they tie it to their faith. Now, I'm not saying our faith shouldn't inform how we vote. I'm not saying that our faith shouldn't inform the way that we live among other people, but I am saying that it is not the substance of our faith, and that is the
okay.
really.
This is I'm gonna go with the distinction without a difference or whatever it is people say, and I just think this is where people play both sides of the fence, and it to me it just betrays a severe lack of self-awareness. You're literally talking about the problems of a politicized gospel, the problems of Christians all of a sudden caring about these things every 4 years when it's a presidential election. And then literally you can't even finish that segment without saying, but I'm not saying it's not important for your faith to inform your decisions. And I'm not saying your faith shouldn't inform your politics. Why do you think we ended up in this mess? And this is what I mean when I would say, nobody wants to be a Christian nationalist, but everybody wants to live in a Christian nation, right? Because they literally want to say, yeah, your faith should inform your entire life. It should inform everything you do. It should inform where you go to the grocery store, who your doctor is, who you let your kids hang out with, what you wear, all of this stuff, who you vote for. And then when we say, yeah, that sounds like some Christian nationalists. Like, no, I'm not a Christian nationalist. I'm not and so they just want to have their cake and eat it too. And this shows that to me they're not serious about it.
They can pack up and move to a Muslim country that allows Christianity and has Sharia law,
Go for it.
or much of Sharia law. That Sharia law is almost straight out of the Old Testament. Everything I know about it is like, I can find that in the Old Testament. Right? Maybe not the dress code specifically, but a lot of other things about the penalties and things like that. We can go to the Old Testament for that. Well, shoot.
Yes, Ember,
You get-
exactly. Ember said, isn't she doing what she's complaining about, assuming because she doesn't see people protesting between elections that it isn't happening, or is she just not paying attention? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think
that's it, Ember. I think that's it.
Yeah.
And maybe innocently so, right? We see her with children. Obviously, she's probably a mom. She's got a ring on. So
she got a grift going. Yeah, she's got a lot going. She's busy.
She's good. She's got her.
She's busy.
So she very well may not be tuned into that sort of thing because she's watching Bluey with her kids, you know,
Right.
and not watching people protesting in the street trying to get a law passed or trying to get a law repealed. Right? She's not tuned into that. That doesn't mean she doesn't care. It just means she's not exposed to it.
She said it. They don't want to have the label. They just want to do the things. Exactly. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
Really big problem that I see in both blues and reds, and both liberals and conservatives, is that for some people, the politicized gospel looks like it's really just the substance of their faith is really the way that they vote. It is treated like a religion. It is their religion. It's not prayer driven as much as it is I logically discern this is the only way kind of driven. And this is the
Beautiful. So there are some problems here with trying to equate what Jesus said to do and how our political system in this nation is organized. My best friend's mom was concerned that our nation is becoming more socialist. So some of you will have heard me mention this.
That's definitely fear mongering she heard from the pulpit.
But wait,
Gotta be.
but wait. I had to remind her of the book of Acts. I explained to her about Jesus giving free health care. Right? It's free. You didn't have to pay anything. He told one of the lepers he healed, go and give this sacrifice that Moses commanded. Go and do that. But that was after he got the treatment. And there are rules. If you can't afford that sacrifice, you do this. And if you can't afford that, you do this. Right? They're trying to be accommodating to where people are at. We can go on about the other things. Jesus gave people free education. He stood there and he talked to them. He didn't charge them a dime. Jesus fed people for free. He stood there. He talked to them. He fed them. Didn't charge them a dime. Sent them on their way. The early church in Acts, it says the people sold what they had and had everything in common. And I wrote to her, I told her this, I said, they were communists. So if you really want to be hardcore Christian, you give away all your possession to the church community. And if you are in need, you let someone know, and your needs, out of what's available, right? Your needs get fulfilled.
Exactly.
So from each according to their means to each according to their needs.
Yeah,
go ahead. I don't know if that made her uncomfortable.
Socialist.
Yeah, I don't know if that made her uncomfortable. I don't know. But I had to say it. Because if she's not seeing it that way, she should. I'm not saying that's the ultimate system. I don't think it is the ultimate system. It's nice if we are in a system with abundance and individuals can make that choice, right? I tend, when I'm working, I have, disposable income. I give a lot of that away because I'm like, okay, I can not only meet my own needs, but I can meet other people's needs too. And I like that it's a choice rather than the government saying, well, we're just going to keep taking because you seem all right, and we got all these other people here who are not all right. that's sort of the system that she probably would gladly operate under, where if she has an abundance, she can give to where she chooses and who she chooses to. That's, I got to admit, that's kind of a nice thing. Because I grew up in a poor neighborhood. We saw that all the time. If you knew there was a kid down the block whose family had like no money, like their parents just lost their jobs or something like that, come over for dinner. Come over for dinner. And that person could go from apartment to apartment to apartment or house to house, whatever, and people would just keep feeding them. That's happened to me.
Yeah.
In my adult life, in the early 2000s, that was happening to me. Come over. Always an invitation because they knew I was having a rough time. Come over. So I think the balance that needs to be struck is not biblical. It is taking the life that people want to lead and making accommodations for some of the mandates of the biblical text.
Right,
Jesus, I promise you, I'll work some of your ideas into the plan, but you can stop talking because we're not doing all that stuff you're asking, all that crazy stuff. No. Go ahead and talk about it. Go ahead.
Way, which is ironic because, right, Jesus says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. It's not a political party, right? It is Jesus. But we get lost in that. And it's so fueled by passion and hatred and my way is right or our way is right that we kind of lose our Christian identity in the midst of it. And so as we rev up for the fall, I think be weary of anyone who leads you into this fear or hatred driven attitude that is our way is the only right way, because that is most of the time overly simplified view of any topic, right? And if we are to have the mind of Christ, that would be one that is humble, that isn't driven by hate, but rather driven by truth. And so I'm not saying that there isn't very clear truth in the Bible that does inform the way that we vote, the way that we live among other believers.
See, there it is.
But it is not truth that should lead us in hatred or pride. And we end up being such bad witnesses to the gospel, especially online, when what we believe or what we say we believe just gets boiled down to a politicized gospel, to my party, my way, my candidates, and anything else is to be hated and feared. And right now is everything to me. This election is everything to me. Friends, y'all know something I say all the time online here is Jesus is everything we're searching for. But I think for some people, we get so caught up with the heat and the fervor of the election that we forget that Jesus truly is everything that we're searching for. It's not the perfect political candidate. It's not the perfect political season. It's not the perfect America. It is not the perfect whatever country you may live in. It is not the perfect anything. We won't have that because we're living underneath the fall. So don't be surprised when pagans are pagans. Don't be surprised when non-believers act like non-believers, do non-believing things. And that would be kind of point two, maybe. And I really want to nail that home in just a simple example of the Olympics. This past summer, the Olympics opening ceremony was a huge hot topic, maybe like a month ago. And everybody was up in arms that the pagans were acting like pagans. It was so clickable that the pagans were acting like pagans. All the algorithms were pushing. And maybe it was 2 summers ago, it was
The
Target.
pagans were
The
acting
pagans
like
are acting like
pagans.
pagans
The
again.
pagans are
And it's
acting
this
like
very
pagans. What is
fear-driven
Pagans means
and
country people.
hatred-driven movement. We should not be surprised when the world acts like the world. We should also not be surprised by the depth of the fall. Even Walmart supports things we don't agree with. Even AT&T or your internet provider,
Even
like
Walmart.
everything that we
They're, like,
consume
betrayed
at some
by
degree
Walmart.
supports something
They're
we
so
don't agree
aggrieved. How
with
can Walmart
or
do
want
this to us?
essentially support or fund. But
Y'all, she's just giving me like white woman in a bubble vibes, and it's very like, I went to a country music concert this weekend, y'all. The whites. I ran into literally one black guy that said he was at the concert. I didn't see him at the concert. I saw him in the bathroom, but in the bathroom, he told me he was at the concert. I swear, y'all, I was in the arena, y'all. I ain't seen no black people. And it's just like, but they were literally singing songs about hanging out at Walmart or whatever like that. And you just realize that sometimes they occupy spaces that like they just assume, since it's so important to their identity and it's so important to their routine and their culture, that it like is in sync with them. And so that's how you end up where you could feel betrayed by Target having, you know, tuck underwear, or you could be like, even our precious Walmart does things we don't agree with. It's just weird. It's just
Unless you're
weird.
going to live off.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to direct if we have Christian listeners, you can read Romans chapter 13, where it talks about respecting governing authorities, and that they are essentially agents of God, and God has selected them. I could see someone making an argument, and this isn't my argument, telling people with the right to vote not to vote, that you don't really have to put much thought into it, or you don't have to vote at all, because God is the one who determines the outcome. That's what this is about. One specific thing: for rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be. Then do what is right, and you will be condemned. For the one in authority is God's servant for you, for your good. So I think they have a word wrong here. They're missing a word. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. So see,
All right.
if your leaders are pro-choice and for equal rights, it's okay. God signed on with that. If they got elected and that's what they believe, there's no need for you to stand up there and contest that. It's okay.
It's okay. Hey, Liz. Hey, Lena. Good to see y'all in here. Yeah, Randy, we're early today. I'm going to play cards at my dad's house.
The grid, secluded from the world, unless you can make everything you possibly consume at home, there's a point in which we have to choose to faithfully live today, take one step forward in front of the other, and say, I'm just going to use this journal. I don't know. I'm looking at like my books, my journals. There's, pens and pencils. I don't know where Crayola manufactures their colored pencils and what may go into that and what they may believe and what Crayola might support and who has all the time in the world to research every single brand that they buy or support in that way. But I think so many Christians get on these super specified trains, the train of hating Target, for example, or the train of, harping on the Olympics. And we really shouldn't be surprised when pagans are pagans. We're wasting all of our energy being so surprised that pagans are pagans instead of preaching the gospel, because no matter what, these pagans are searching for truth. These non-believers are living this way, are doing these things that we don't agree with because they don't have Jesus. So if we take a little less of our energy on talking about how much they just don't live for Jesus and instead preach the gospel, preached Jesus, showed them Jesus, dare I say it, we might be a little bit better off, right? We might make a little bit more impact for the gospel and for the sake of the gospel. Jesus tells us our homework is to go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, not to raise awareness.
But this is what you were talking about earlier. Like, first off, is the Uncle Bobby thing. They keep acting like this is some big secret nobody knows, and they really got to run around and tell us because we haven't heard the good news of Jesus. Like we've heard it. We've most definitely certainly heard it and understand it. But then again, like you were saying, my one black friend, they're not doing it. They're not laying hands on people and healing them. They're not drinking the poison. They're not handling the snakes. And then beyond that, this is the thing that they don't seem to get either. They're not doing even the character things, right? It's like they're
That's
supposed
a really
to be
strong point.
They're supposed to be leading. They're supposed to be leading us. They should be the example of how to treat women and equality between men and women, because that would be loving and godlike. And instead we have to like drag them. It's 2024 and most of them still won't fucking ordain women. And a lot of their women don't even think they should have the right to vote. It's 2024 and they're taking away women's rights. It's 2024 and instead of them being the leaders and showing us the love and how to treat everybody in the community the same, we've literally got to fight a culture. We're in the middle of a culture war. They actually call it a culture war because they want to be bigoted towards the LGBTQ people, foreigners, Black people. They're literally trying to take our way of rights. Like when is that love of Jesus stuff going to make Christians the shining beacon on the hill that the rest of us admire, rather than the lowly people in the dirt that the rest of us have to drag into civilization?
Well, look, the problem Christianity has is it has pretenders. There are those people who are sincerely doing their level best to be in alignment with the principles of the Gospels and other parts of the Bible. There are people like that. Nuns are an example. Monks are another example. Talk about giving it all up to go and honor their faith journey, right? Any one of them might look at a sexy brand new car like, woo! And then they go back to doing what they were doing. Maybe they'd like a ride in it, but they're not going to spend much time coveting because they have better, more fulfilling things to do. Meanwhile, there are believers who will work their butts off to get that $105,000 Lexus LC 500 and be making $1,400 a month payments on it when they could feed how many people with that same money and drive a beater Prius like me? Hey, I'm getting 36 miles per gallon. The traction battery's dead, so I don't get 53 anymore. But my car takes me everywhere their car can take them. And look at all the good they could have done with the money, right? The difference. They still would have had what they need that would serve them well. Yeah. And they could give more away. But again, it has pretenders. And then there are those people like the monks and the nuns and many retirees who volunteer at hospitals and stuff like that and do things for church that are really into it. Yeah. And it's funny. I don't know that there's a distinction within the church between the two. Right?
You mean the pretenders and the ones who are all about it?
The ones who are, yeah, exactly. I don't think there's a difference. Now, the nuns and the monks know how committed they are. But the other people, do they respect that level of commitment, or do they see themselves providing the same level of commitment? Well, the nun contributes their time, or the monk contributes their time, but I make a lot of money, and I donate $45,000 a year to the church.
No, they tell themselves they're called to families and all this. All right, let's keep rolling. We don't got a lot of time.
Yeah.
Awareness of here's a new person to hate or a new people group to shame or condemn, but rather speak truth into the darkness. And I do think some people were trying to do that on these various topics I've referenced, but there's a line by which we cross it and eventually we step into spending way too much of our energy worrying about these things instead of just speaking truth. We have the truth of eternity in our hands when we hold the word of God. We have the hope of the nations within us and obviously in the word of God. Why would we withhold that and make it so shallow as to, whatever it may be that we politicize or that we boil it down to? It's as simple as this person supports this or this person uses this or whatever it may be. Again, I'm not saying that we don't need to be mindful about where we put our money. We are called to be good stewards, just like Adam and Eve were called to steward over the garden. We are called to steward over everything that we have and that we influence. But there's a line of discernment by which I think Christians, it's just easier for us not to use discernment and we just sit back and we let the influencers tell us who to hate. And we sit back and we let other people tell us who are the bad people. And we spread this fear-driven hatred, politicized kind of religion instead of, no, I personally have prayed about it because I personally have discerned it, not just because this is what Christians say is a bad thing. You know, Christians will pick random little things to get up in arms about. And meanwhile, there's so much more injustice going on around the world. There's so much stuff in our neighborhoods, never mind worldwide, that we could be better off being up in arms about. So don't let, whether it's Christian influencers or just Christian adjacent media, let you get so focused on the details. Who are we hating this month? What are we condemning or boycotting or whatever? Not that boycotts aren't good, but y'all get what I'm saying. There's a line to which we turn off our brains and we just consume. Okay, this person says to hate Taylor Swift. This person says to, I don't know, never shop at Target. And we're not consciously thinking, okay, but why are we doing this? How can I therefore speak truth into those moments?
And again, revealing, like, it's very revealing. The example she goes to is, this person told me to hate Taylor Swift, and this person told me to not shop at Target. Like this you're all leaning to one side on
whatever
this.
Way. Maybe my teenager's listening to Taylor Swift. How can I speak truth into my teenager? How can we redeem the times? How can I point to Jesus instead of just spread hatred? And nope, we don't do that. How can we speak truth into the brokenness? You know, Jesus came obviously as our Messiah, as our Savior, and because of apocalyptic literature in the Old Testament, really the first century, what they expected the Messiah to be was a politicized leader. They thought he would come in like a warrior and whoop everybody's bottom. They thought he would come in and destroy Rome, destroy the bad guys, and save all the Jews. And when Jesus comes onto the scene, Jesus is not what anybody expected. He is a humble, lowly, like carpenter's son. He's got dirty feet just like everybody else. He has splinters in his fingers just like everybody else. He's so unexpectedly humble that it was almost like they struggled to believe or struggled to consider him here like this. And in Mark 8, there's like this turning point that happens where Jesus has been doing healings. He's been feeding the 4,000. He's done teaching. He walks on water. He heals the sick. And then we get to verse 27 and we hit a turning point where Peter confesses the truth of who exactly Jesus is, and Jesus affirms it, but says something that no one would have expected. So remember, they're expecting a political leader, and this is what happens. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days risen again. And he said this plainly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." He said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel will save it." So Mark records here a summary of Jesus' teaching about being rejected, being killed, and rising again. And he's teaching them about the Son of Man, which is an apocalyptic literature kind of figure, messianic figure that would come and save everybody. This was like a warrior lamb figure who would come in, whoop the bad guys, like conquer over the bad guys, like militarily, and usher in God's kingdom.
And she just has no sense of how weird and cultish this is, and that it's not normal for Jesus to be sitting here saying, look at the pause, look at her face. But it's like what is she, what are we doing here? And this is what I mean about, like, if a Jesus figure, if Jesus came along right now and said, "I'm the second Son of God," and said and did all of these things out of the Bible, Christians they'd probably have him killed. They literally probably have him killed. They'd be the Jews this time around, and they'd have him killed. But there's no way they'd be like, "Oh yeah, oh so you're gonna die 3 days and then rise." Like, it's so weird, so weird.
Think how disruptive someone like Jesus would be in our time if he came back, right? Let's say there's Christianity existing. If he came back in a way that isn't dramatic / traumatic, as we see in Acts, but if he came down as the humble visitor to earth, spending some time, trying to spend a few years, putting the church back into alignment with his true values before the time.
Uh-oh. It looks like we lost my one black friend.
Are you there, Pocket Locker?
Yeah, you're back.
Pocket Locker?
Yeah, you're back.
Are you there?
You can't hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, maybe he's got to reset. Her face is so weird right now. Okay. But yeah, this is oh, here he goes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So, if Jesus came back and he's trying to bring the church into alignment, he's walking around trying to prove who he is by actually laying on hands and healing people, and he can do so by the thousands. You're still going to have people who are trying to tear Christianity out of his hands. So, like the Kenneth Copelands, I would assume someone like a Kenneth Copeland has way too much of a good thing going to bend the knee to Jesus incarnate walking around the earth, especially if Jesus is an ethnic person. The numbers of people who won't buy into it are going to be even bigger, right? Jesus shows up and he's as black as I am. You can forget it. Even he's going to have a hard time. Like, we can see, but you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, but you're not what we wanted. You don't look like the picture on my grandmother's wall. You don't look like the dude in the Last Supper.
Right.
Maybe they don't look like me. I was here first. Say what you want. Say what you want. I'm not giving up my premarital sex. I'm not giving up this. I'm not giving up that. I'm not giving blah, 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 blah. But I have the promise of heaven, righteousness, salvation,
Jesus comes
a
back
better
right
world.
now. He'd be a Palestinian. Can you imagine?
Well, I almost wish we could interview a historian that would show, like, look, not every Jew left Israel after the Romans invaded. Not every Jew left Israel after, what was it, the Bar Kokhba rebellion. There were some still there to work the land. Well, when the Muslims invaded, it was convert or die for a lot of those people, people's ancestors, and they converted. They're killing their cousins.
Yeah.
If they are the people, they're killing their cousins, and it doesn't seem to matter enough to the people with power. There are plenty of citizens on both sides. Like, look, we're not part of the military conflict here. We want to live in peace with each other. That's what we want. Now, that's about the most honorable thing that can happen, and that's the thing that should happen. But nope, if somebody wants power, two groups want power. The group in the middle wants peace, and they get stepped on.
I think convert or die is how most of these religions got to where they're at right now.
I've been in Tbilisi, Georgia, and I've been in Bulgaria, in Sofia, Bulgaria, and I've had friends point out the same thing. This is the river. When you meet a Bulgarian person, you talk with them. Let's say they speak English. You don't have to speak Bulgarski, but they're speaking English to you, and they agree with you, and they'll do like this. This is like a yes. Because that came from when the Muslims were like, do you convert? They were Christians, right? Bulgarians were Christians in large numbers. Do you want to convert to Islam? They would do this. Because this is like saying yes and no at the same time. So hundreds of years later, it's over 1,000 years later, they're still doing that. They're still doing that. So, because if you said no, I was told they would cut your head off and throw your body in the river.
Wow.
And this was they cited a particular bridge where this was done.
Wow.
Jews thought. And Jesus teaches them about the Son of Man and how he's actually humble, how he's going to be rejected, how he's going to be killed, and then how he's going to conquer the grave and rise again 3 days later. So they have been expecting the Messiah. They've been expecting the Son of Man. And he says, yeah, so the Son of Man is going to come and die. What? Maybe you're like me and you get so heated with the politics that you start to expect like the next perfect president. Well, if we can just have 4 years of peace, if we can just have 8 years of peace, if we can just have a Christian up there in that role, which will bring 8 years of peace, and they'll do all the right things, and they'll be like one of the good kings in the book of Chronicles or whatever, right? That's where we start to think, right? We place our hope in man. What does Jesus tell Peter? He says, get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Don't be like these first century Jews that had their mind set on this messianic figure that would just take care of the right now. Have that eternal mindset, the kingdom of God kind of mindset. You see, what Jesus does here is Jesus ties the Son of Man, the messianic figure, to the suffering servant of Isaiah 53. And he says he's going to suffer and die to bring in his kingdom. And ultimately, we know, standing on this side of the cross, that we are citizens of that
The
eternal
language, oh my
kingdom.
God, the Christianese, the outworking, the indwelling, the standing on this side of the cross. Oh my goodness, do y'all hear yourselves? Do y'all hear yourselves? But again, they're not going to do this because, again, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to go around to the rest of us pretending that Christianity is their whole identity. It's all about God. It's all about Jesus. It's all about the relationship with the Lord. But then when it comes to dealing with real stuff, which is what politics is, dealing in reality, it's all about power. And they got to play that game. They got to get in there because they ultimately care about how things go in reality. And it's sort of like you said before, Mom, like it just sort of shows you that they don't practice what they preach. They don't believe what they say. They don't believe what they say. They know politics is more important. They know it matters more who's the president. They know it matters more what our laws are. That's why they do it.
Maybe a good question to ask, and I don't know that I've ever asked this question. What would you give up for this to be true? Like, I don't believe what you're telling me. I don't believe that you believe what you're telling me. So what will you give up, or what have you given up because you wanted this to be true? Show me, tell me. Because I'm unconvinced by your presentation.
Unconvinced.
And the right now, no matter how hard it gets, is just temporary, is not eternal. In fact, in 20 years, we might struggle to remember who we even voted for. It doesn't end here. That's like literally the point of the book of Revelation, is to tell us who wins out in the end, so that no matter what we go through,
We
no matter
already
what
know
we
we win in
face,
the
we can
end.
have faith knowing who wins out in the end.
This is
Jesus.
crazy.
And we know our expected
This is
home.
crazy.
We know what we are given eternally. That heaven.
And again, this is the internal dialogue. Don't let Christians run from the book of Revelation. Don't. Because I know it sounds craziness. It sounds like a bunch of nonsense, because it is. But this idea of we know what happens, who wins in the end, it's in their preaching, it's in their music, you see it's in their apologists. It's like, and they just don't even realize how weird they sound.
The book of Revelation, whether you believe in God or Jesus or not, is worth reading just to get a window into something that a lot of Christians don't read. They will not read it. I've met quite a few that I'm impressed by the number of people who avoid reading this book. It is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best ones in the entire Bible, because I don't read Greek. If I had to read it in the Greek, which I'm told is not that good, I'd have a rough time probably, because I like clarity. But it's really good, and you do get an insight, in my opinion, into what Jesus believed if he existed, because I'm a Christ mythicist, what he believed he was. And I've mentioned this on Hot Program too. I've gone as far as to say, I think most, if not all, of Revelation was written before Jesus' ministry began.
Yeah,
I think they added
you think he was inspired by it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think he thought it was his mission, because he came to, I think it was Crystal, put it in the comments. I came to bring not a sword, I came to bring peace, but not a sword. That's
peace,
in
but a sword,
Revelation.
yeah.
Not peace, but a sword. Okay. That's in Revelation. That's in Revelation. But Jesus shows up. Now the sword's supposed to be his mouth, like it is in Revelation. Jesus does no fighting, right? In the temple. He had a cord. He made a like a cat of nine tails or something on that order, a whip. And he's swinging that thing around the temple, whoosh, whoosh, like he's Indiana Jones, I guess, scaring off the people in the temple, turning over tables in the temple. Where's his army? I think I could make a case that at some point he realized, I'm not that guy. He's on the Mount of Olives. These things will be torn down, all this. Well, that's in Revelation. It talks about the destruction that's supposed to occur. That's not happening when he's sitting there on the Mount of Olives trying to figure stuff out like me on my truck. How the heck does this piece work? You know, it's just really sad. I think reading Revelation would probably make a few people not be Christians. Like, oh, well, this isn't going to happen, is it? Because the guys in Revelation are riding around on horseback. Horseback. You mean to tell me Jesus and his horsemen of the apocalypse? Because there's going to be an atheist in a tank that sees a magical guy on a magical horse, and he ain't having it. He's going to start shelling the magical guy on his horse.
Right.
You know, it's just clear that it was written for their time. And I when I read over it, because I still read it, I think it's fascinating. I can respect that. I don't believe it's true, but I can respect that. And I think it is disrespectful of Christians not to read the Bible. And maybe that's something I should put on a shirt. If you are a Christian and you haven't read the Bible, that is being highly disrespectful.
It is.
To your God, not to your faith. They're honoring their faith, right? Because their faith is superficial. If they won't read the Bible, their faith is superficial.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what their shirt should say too. Not to your faith, because that's superficial if you haven't read the Bible.
It's going to be a lot of words on the shirt.
Well, I guess it's made for bus rides or something like that. I could use that for when I get on the plane and there's that one person that stands up and starts preaching, like, wait, read my shirt before you continue, and you can sit by me. Come on, say no more. Come right over here. I'll enlighten you. Go ahead, Pocket Locker.
So friends, don't allow yourself to get anxious, to get heated, to start hating over the politicized gospel, because the gospel itself is good enough for you. It's good enough for us. The gospel itself is our hope. Jesus himself is our savior, not Jesus plus a good president this year. And so don't just make certain things a faith issue. All things should be in light of
all
the lens
things
of
should be a faith issue.
And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, what party aligns, or who to condemn, because that's not
Fascism.
what it's about. It's about truly getting in the Word of God.
Can you pause the Pocket Locker,
not
please?
What are other Christians voting for?
I know you got to go. We're coming up on time here. I'm reminded I saw Jesse Jackson Jr. speak when I was in college, and he compared Martin Luther King to Malcolm X. And I think she just did something that he commented Malcolm X did. He said Malcolm X would get essentially a room full of people and preach the hate right out of them so that they wouldn't go out and make a difference. Yeah. While Martin Luther King would take a bunch of scared deacons and get them to go out and try to affect change. She's essentially, in my view, I think she just might have encouraged people not to make a difference.
I mean,
they're capable of.
That's, yeah.
Or she was like, look, you just gotta.
Or she's just saying be about that, but she's not effective at it, because she's literally saying everything should be about God and every decision you make should be about Jesus, and including your politics. It's again like they want to solve the problems that Christianity creates with the Christian revival. They want to use Christianity to solve, and it's just yeah. All right, let's let her out.
Okay.
Or how are other Christians saying we're supposed to live as our authority? Don't be lazy. Don't just make it all politicized. But how can we live today in light of eternity, not just this election? All right, I know this was a little bit different than most of my other videos, but if you want to see more about like cultural content kind of stuff and how it affects the way that we read the Bible, understand the Bible, and apply it to our lives, definitely check out this playlist here. I think you're gonna like it. Bye, guys.
All right. Yeah, it's just hard. It's very hard to take this type of person seriously. And look, this is like a lot of Christians, very nice people, but clearly they've just been indoctrinated in it. They've stayed in it. It's a person who doesn't seem very worldly. They lack a certain sophistication. And I know that sounds snobbish, but it's just what I see. I see a person that's very sweet but isn't very smart and is lacking major shit when it comes to the basics of critical thinking. And I'm just in a point in my life where I'm not going to let Christians sit around and tell me they have the truth on their side. It's just very difficult to hear. Again, that's why I started with the clip that I started with. We know you're lying, and you keep saying it anyway, because it's what their followers want to hear. So she, to me, is guilty of the same thing that those independent voters accuse Trump of. We know you're lying. We know the facts don't contradict what you're saying, but you guys are just going to keep doing it anyway because this is how you're captured at this point. At this point, she's totally captured by Christianity.
Well, look, I used to be a writer. I like a clever turn of phrase. Yes, Faith, you have the truth on your side, but are you on the side of the truth?
Mm.
Even the most dishonest person has the truth on their side because sticking to the truth will make life easier for them. It just will, because the complications that rise out of their lies being discovered could be crippling to their life. So it's better not to traffic in endless lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. Trump would be better off, in my opinion, if he just stood up there and said, look, I don't want to go to prison. But nope, he just keeps lying, so people will be convinced he's the perfect leader for them. He will stay out of prison because he's going to pardon himself 40 seconds after being sworn in because he forgot to do it last time. That won't get him out of the state crimes, but the federal stuff, he's gold.
Yeah, he's gonna get rid of that stuff. And again, she doesn't seem to understand the urgency. This is why a lot of this stuff just seems silly. No, actually, it does matter. It's a really consequential election. One of these is not like the other. I mean, there's a huge difference between these candidates and a huge difference in what our lives look like based on this choice that this country is getting ready to make. And again, she just seems like off the reservation. Like, and this is why Christians seem like very silly people to me. They're all playing their little game, playing their little fantasy, and it's kiddie table with that shit for me, because it just like I said, it makes them seem like they really haven't matured into fully functioning adults. Yeah. Read your Bible, Christians.
Exactly. If you can't afford one, let me know.
We will provide one. Nah, they all have one because they all have phones. They all have phones, and there's
true,
Bibles on their phones.
As I have mentioned before, I have a $250 fund to buy Bibles for people who want a Bible. The only person who I've ever sent a Bible to is one of our listeners, so he can bedazzle it for me and send it back to me.
Yes, you know who that is.
I write it again and again on Facebook and on Instagram, and there are no takers. So to me, that says either they don't even have the spite to say, well, I'm going to make you spend $25 on getting me a Bible because I can't stand the way you do this. Or what if I read it? Or maybe he's right and I just don't want to stop playing right now. I don't want it to
just end. Don't want to stop playing right now. Woo. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in. Of course, join the Discord. Come hang out and gather. Appreciate y'all. Like the video. Definitely. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Leave us a comment if you're watching later. Be good to yourselves.
And subscribe to my Honorable Wrenching channel. Just do like hashtag 1957 sunburn truck as one word, and you can see me toy around with my vehicle
Yeah, and I'll be on
and each other.
Skeptic Haven.